Hi there everyone, welcome back. Today we're just gonna go over a few of the things in the Horror Mansion demo that was posted recently. And this was a completely different genre than I'm used to making. Also, it was first person, where I'm usually doing third person. That's mainly due to the controllers I'm using. And there were a few new things, quite a few actually, and I had to do a lot of customization, but it was really interesting because I wanted to get into learning more about the timeline and animation. And this was like a great opportunity to experiment a little with that. So let's go over the assets first. Somewhere in here we have a main scene in the horror FPS. So I did all the things you're not supposed to do, basically. I edited the assets themselves. That means if I update them, they won't work anymore. Let's see, we have a main menu here. And there's actually a live terrain behind it. The terrain is, as usual, generated with a Microverse, as you can see. And it's just a small terrain. You can see the terrain is actually quite big, but we only need this part for the camera. I use Roland's StampIT collection, and in this version I think on the title screen I'm using the Microverse example, the demo that came. But in the game I'm using the StampIT. So you can see we have the example, so this is the example from Microverse, and I just scaled it and modified it to fit. I placed in the Horror Mansion, half buried in the sand. Added some trees, added some filters. Trees, some crops. And what we get is this look. Title, menu. I like it because initially I created a background, but I feel we are missing something. I like this. You see the wind movement in the trees. You can see there's some light in the back. And as you already has guessed or seen down here, I'm using the Horror FPS kit, and this is basically out of the box as is. I just modified it as I needed. I removed the load and save and continue options because I just want this to be a go in play, and if you fail, well, that's it. Not that you can fail, it's just a matter of time, I would say. If we hit play on this, I included... let's mute the game. There we go. I included the assets. So we can see we have the scripts assets I've been using. And it's really hard to define what is a script asset. But basically it's the tools, so maybe I should have renamed this to tools. Horror FPS kit, Microverse, Ultimate StampIT collection, Cozy, Stylized Weather 2, background, yeah. U-Motion Pro, love this very much. Rapid icon, because I need to generate some icons in game, and magic probes, which, well, I didn't bake the light. I should have baked the light, but I started using bakery and then things just got messy and I was like, no, skip it. And I added buttons here, so basically if you click any of the buttons, it loads the link up in the browser for the asset. Models, it's heavily Synty Studios Polygon style. And demon animations from, what's it called? Ramsters. Oh, we can actually just click the button. Oh, this is a wrong button name. But it links the right way. Ramsters. He makes some really good animations. I like them. And for audio, Well, most of the assets was deprecated or not available anymore. Only this one was available still. That's the thing when you search out old assets in the asset store. You have to remember I've been using the asset store since maybe 2014, so I have a lot of assets that's deprecated. That is fine, even the tools, because often I don't know why they go deprecated, but when I download a tool, for example, I like from one of the old tools, and it says it's only useful for Unity 5 and newer. It's not really working in Unity 2021 LTS. But often it's just some minor fixes that needs to be changed in code, and I can do that myself, so it's okay. Play games as itself, settings, well, they work, so that's nice. Let's jump to the game scene. So this one called The Mansion. We have the UI, and we can see we have the terrain here. I also scaled down the terrain because we don't need that big a terrain for this. But you can see we have a lot of splines. Not a lot, we have a few. Let's turn on the development lights. Up. So the first spline is basically for the road. And when you're using Microverse and Unity terrains, Unity splines is actually working quite well, and Microverse has this one called Spline Path that allows us... okay, the dog is going crazy. That allows us to add a texture, like a road, like we see here. The same with the paths leading in, it's just splines and then a texture, and you can see we have different textures on each spline. Let's give this nice feeling or appearance. As for the trees, you know, Unity terrain does not support mesh trees, and well, any tree we really get from any package anywhere is a mesh tree. So I had to, let's find one of the trees, here we go. That's one of the trees. I disabled the mesh collider, you can see it right here. It's a nice collider. And I added a simple sphere and a capsule collider. I did that to all the trees and objects I'm using or placing with Microverse. Just in case the player wants to go and explore instead. Sorry about that, had to cough. I had it in some of my other demos where I feel it's kind of game breaking when you can walk through something that's an obstacle, or should be an obstacle. And even a simple collider is better than no collider, I think. That's why these are here. So that was the terrain generation, and it was a really interesting thing to do with the Synty Mansion. Of course, the idea is you should really just make your own assets out of these assets, but I just take them from the demo and copy them in. Because, well, as you know, my demos, I work on a limited time. If we find the mansion here, you see there's a lot of, don't mind those being too tall, but there's a lot of digging into the ground because there's basements. And if you saw the demo, you have this basement and then you have the sub-basement here. And one of the challenges with the Unity terrain is if the terrain is placed at 0 in height, Y value, you cannot dig into it. You have to get the terrain up. So to get that working, I actually first moved the terrain up to maybe 100 or 50, something like that. Then I added my StampIT, and you can see here I used the Volcano 09 from the StampIT collection, and flattened that out. Might be hard to see it's a volcano, but in reality we have the circle here. So if we just take Cozy and disable that for a second, you can see the edge. It's barely visible, but it's there. But any other thing that's not cozy, that's the weather. So of course the fog is also from cozy. Anything else in the scene is purely Synty Polygon items. So these are from the Synty FX package. So if we... Oh, it was there. Synty some time ago released a nice package called, I think it's just called, it's called Particle FX. It has some really nice things, and this fog, for example, is from that. As for the horror FPS tool, these two items is really it. That's the main deal. So the UI, the menu, which here also is controlling the inventory, save game, which we are not using, objective menus, stuff like that. It's all controlled by the UI. The player itself is just a very nice player, I would say, player controller with a lot of customization, and I had to do a lot of customization because I had issues with the character height. Anybody who has been playing with Synty characters and character models before and placed them in a doorway found that sometimes you cannot go through the doorway because the character is actually colliding with the top bar. So I had to adjust the collider. As you can see, the collider is a bit taller, but it's actually scaled now to make him go in. Also, the first person camera is above his head usually. I had to move that down. That's done in here. If you do it in the scene, you might think it will work. It won't. You have to do it over here in these. You can see you have camera head up here, but also camera aim and various settings like the controllers. So you have these values, which is really important for the height. But it's a really nice controller, I think. In the demo you saw there is a hearse parked right here, so I have two hearses. I have this one, which is the one you see in the demo, and we have the guy in here. It's just a copy of the character, and he has a animation. So if we click on the guy here, we have a controller called driving with 2 Gs. And that was one I had to sort of come up with myself. Oh. There we go. But you can see it's running way too fast. But this is actually all he's doing while driving, because you only see him for a second from this angle. And if you slow it down, which I did, I slowed it down to, I think it's 0.2 or something. You just see him correcting the mirror or waving. And I think that's exactly what I needed. And this, it looks like a lot of stuff, but actually when you use, what's it called? Here we go, U-Motion. Pose and clip editor. It's super easy. I should really use this asset more. I used it several times in this demo. There are a few animations I had to customize or make from scratch. So he drives down to this point where actually the hearse is disabled and this one is enabled while the camera is moving away. And this is just a static one. But in the back we animated the door to open, only using horror FPS, and there's a spare battery for the flashlight. Because we need the flashlight, it's very dark in here, and that's on purpose. All of this is just the start scene, and this is basically where you start playing, and it's controlled by this script here. So I created a script called First Run, because I couldn't really figure out the horror FPS. In theory, there are two things going on here. The first one is there's a playable director. That's a timeline. And you can see activation tracks on some things. That's just the text you see typing out. And then we have a signal emitter at the end. This signal emitter triggers a function on this script. And the script really ends the cutscene here, and this is what is being run. So I like Unity events a lot. So initially I created this because I wanted this to only run the first time, and if you load into a save game, you don't want to run this again. So it will save as a player, press this has been run, and this would be checked. So when this is checked, you start here from this point. If this is unchecked or you haven't played before, it will run the cutscene. That's really all that's going on here. You can see we have a signal receiver here. That's the one that triggers the script. The script itself is surprisingly simple. Give it a sec to load. But I'm actually surprised how many scripts I had to write for this demo compared to usually. Usually I only make a few. So here we go. We have our definitions, and then we have a wake. The awake just checks or gets the components, and then we check, has this been played before? If it has been played before, then we run this Unity event. If it has not, then we run the start event, and we run the start timeline. And here we have end of cutscene, which runs the if you have played before, then we skip the cutscene. This is disabled for the demo, of course. So every time you start it, it will run the cutscene, and there's no way to skip it. That's totally on purpose. One thing you noticed when you walk through the gate, you can see there are these characters up here. And when we turn off the light, they're supposed to be really scary, right? You can see there's a guy up here, there's a guy here. These are fun because they're not really there. It's just an illusion, right? Or a one-sided model. So there is actually several triggers here, and I think it's under objectives. Objectives is the story objectives. Scene interactables, here we go. So you can see these are all the interactables there is in the game. All things that will happen based on an interactable. These are just triggers, and in this case we triggered a voiceover, and these will disappear and the light will turn off when you walk in. The other one is the objectives. That's the ones that gives you a mission. And that comes straight out of the box from Horror FPS. So you can see you get an objective, new objective, quest 0. It goes all the way through. So if we select all objectives, you can see they're like this. And you saw the demo, you have to go here. As soon as you enter here, well, stand close enough, you will trigger the next objective when the light is not working. Then you will go into the basement, trigger an objective here, but the voiceover won't play until after you switched the switch here. So I had to make some custom scripts to a lot of these. And when you flip this, you get a new objective that says, what does it say? Oh, check the note on the table right here. Again, you can see there's nothing unusual. This is looks like a standard script, but I had to modify it because I wanted it when the player examines this, when you pick it up and look at it and read it, I want to be able to progress the story or the quest line. That's not available out of the box, so I added another script, which is basically just a trigger where I can add Unity events. So when this is picked up, these Unity events are being run. And if we look inside, you can see it's just running the events. But that was really hard to get working. So I have this script, right? And if we open the one that comes with Horror FPS, no, you're absolutely right. This, I didn't even modify this one. It was the manager, because I remember I was asking in the Discord chat about if anybody knew about this, and apparently nobody did. So somewhere here we have what's it called? A inspection manager or something. Where is it? Where is it? Is it on the player? Yes. Here we go. Examine manager. So still here, the only thing I added was this one. You can see we have a public script attachment. Basically, these are the scripts on here. So what happens is, once a player picks up the item, any item really, I added my own variable. Is it private? Hidden under private? That could easily be. Yeah, it's public here. So that's my script, right? This one. And I added a function called MV trigger. That's me, my trigger. It checks if the item being picked up is not null, or the script is not null, and if the item has been seen before, because there's a bool here, has been seen, so it will only run once anyway. If it has not been seen, it will set the item to true, and then we'll run the Unity event, which is this one. That's basically all. Of course, I had to hook it in somewhere, so if I look at my function and hit Control F and then F3, here we go. Line 788, where objects are held, I added these lines. Basically, if object held has this component, if you can get this component, because there's a lot of objects that don't have this component and we just skip it, right? But if it has this component, we store the component and we run the function at the top. It took me some time to go through that entire script because the classes in the asset are massive. They could really use some separation, but we got it working anyway. So a few of the quest items also at the ceiling, under the ceiling or attic, next to the radio, we have this key. This key is important. When you pick up the key, it looks like it's inside the table right now. It's the same thing going on here. So you can see we have the interaction item standard, and then I added this on. And of course, the quest trigger, because basically we want to run a quest. Cool. The gray box, that's actually something Synty Studios had. I can't remember when, if it was last year or a few years back. They sold this on the website. Basically what it was, I was trying to find, it's not available anymore. It's just a gray box, and I think we paid maybe $10 or something. It was a support box, something like that. So I just want to incorporate that, give it a nice hum. Of course, the shader material itself is from this asset called Amazing Assets. I think I forgot to add him in as under the assets. Everything else I think is from Horror FPS, so you can see we have these like interactables where you can pull out. But again, you just have to animate them, and just the Unity animator is fine for this. So you can see, whoa. That's all. There's no special things going on here. And it requires an animator. Go to the parent, there's nothing. So each draw, because I have separated them, and they have this animation and a dynamic object where it triggers the animation and plays a sound. Really nice. The light as well. So Horror FPS offers this really nice feature where you can enable something. There's a script called electricity. I think I put it here. Yes. So whenever you use a light somewhere and the power is off, basically this lever has not been tripped, you'll get this tip that shows power is off. So you need to go and turn this on before the lights are working. So on the switches themselves, let's see, we have this one called interactive light, and you just tag in the game object with this script, and then it checks if the power is on or off. In the demo you saw, I was actually able to turn this on by default, but that's... I don't know what's going on here. I'm pretty sure I messed that up. One of the custom animations I had to do with the U-motion was actually in this room. So remember when you trigger this and come back out, there's a guy standing there watching you. Let's see if we can find him. Ground level events, library demon. Here we go. If we enable this, you can see it's standing there looking, leaning. So when you come out and hit this trigger, you can see the trigger is right here. Should really make this bigger so it covers the entire room, because you could walk around and get close to the demon and it would just stay there. But once this is triggered, he will, you can see the triggers right here. It's just a Unity event calling this one called Wave. And if we take this guy, the controller, we have an idle state and a wave state, and all you do is tag the trigger. So you can see he waves and then he leaves. And he actually despawns right after. That's why he's gone from the scene. Oh yeah, this is AI supported, because I'm not very good at writing, right? So for example, this book, when you inspect it, it has a lot of text. Several of the items do. That's actually something I got from OpenAI. So let's bring that over, or ChatGPT. So you can see I used the typewriter script. That's the one I'm using. And basically, I need a script that can write UA text as a typewriter and change line when you fade out previous line. And then you get it right. Because I don't want to spend too much time on it. Here's some of the story, because basically, imagine a role-playing game finding a journal page with information about gates to a different dimension. What would the text say? And then you get some text. I need more information here. Imagine a role-playing game where you find a book about demons and how they travel to our world. What would such a book be called, and a short description? And then you get some information from the chat. The book is entitled The Gates of the Abyss, a treatise of demonic summoning and conjuration. Yeah, so I take a look at this and then I edit what I need and you use parts of it only, and I put it in these for the player to read. The greenhouse itself, it is explorable, there's nothing out there, and the same with the shed. It's there just for aesthetics, so you can go and look inside if you want to. Oh yeah, these, they caused me problems, so this event in the basement, so if we minimize this and look at the... Where's the basement? Basement events, here we go. Coffin scare. So, of course there is a script from horror FPS called scare, or jump scare, something like that. But, and let's take a look. Jump, scare, trigger. I used it a few times. It's really good, but again, I'm missing ways to customize my actions or what's going on. Because, and an easy way to get around that was just to add Unity events, right? So instead, well, I'm just thinking, I just need a trigger and I need to trigger some things. So I added or created I always have a script called random. You've seen it in all my demos. And random stuff is usually a script that contains a lot of public functions that I use throughout the game in different scenarios. So I also use it for debug. So you can see debug this thing and debug the message. I have a trigger. And again, Cinemachine. I use Cinemachine a lot because Cinemachine comes with this tag field that allows me to just attach a tag to something. So you can see right here, tag, click. I don't have to write it out, because if I write it out, there's a chance I mistype a letter or character or add a space at the end or something silly like that. So I prefer using Cinemachine and just get one of these in. They run a script called Local Explosion. It was just me playing around with physics, where I add force to the explosion. And then if you play a sound, but that's just a collision feature. So when you move around this lid, you can move it around, drag it around. We play a sound just to, because things make a sound when you move them, of course. Here's another jump scare or scare. I don't think any of them are jump scares. It's horror light, let's call it that. So you can see there's a big trigger across the room here, and on this door. I think it's this one. So basically, a demon will spawn, crawl out, and crawl over in this room. And I do believe in this case I'm actually using the jump scare trigger, because the jump scare trigger has one really nice feature. Like, it has this scared breath you add to the player, and how long is he breathing like he's shocked or scared, and you can adjust some of the effects on screen, post effects. Same in this room. This container, you can see there actually some white here. I placed that because there's a hole in the wall here, and the terrain is not really happy about using these almost vertical. You can see it's completely white. And of course it makes sense, because it's impossible to add vertical terrain. Well, it's not impossible, as you can see, but it's stretching. And it's not really vertical, but it's too vertical to be useful, right? It also looks like shit. That's another thing. And there's a hole in the wall, so I had two options. Either I can move a piece of wall over and cover the hole with a new wall, or do something with it. So I chose to do something with it and added this container door. And then there's a trigger that plays like a sound when you approach it. The same with the trim. You can see there's floor trimming, and outside there's a trimming here. So if we take one of these and move it away, it's because this is the edge of the terrain. So I have trimming around the house to cover that up. And inside the basement when I find it. I'm sure there's more than just one place where this happens. That pretty much covers everything. Of course, everything else is out of the box with the horror FPS, the locked doors, the door animations. It's really simple, and I'm really surprised how easy it was to get going. The only real challenge I had was with the objectives, to trigger those when I want to, like picking up objects. So right now, if you play the demo, one of the things you will notice, when you pick up this key, you will get the objective twice. Yeah. But that's okay, because that's almost end of the game, and I don't really feel like dealing with it now. What else is there to cover? The lighting, of course, I found it strange that I couldn't attach which lights is going to be turned on and off here. But that's because the lights in horror FPS is a different setup. It's, well, old school. So the lights is looking at the switch and not the other way around. So you need to connect the lights to the switch, and then we'll get them turned on when you play with the switches. Batteries. Yeah. Just trying to see if there's anything I'm forgetting to mention. So we talked about the doors. That's standard. There's nothing unique about that. So you can see we dynamic objects from Horror FPS. The items you can pick up in this case is a battery. The lamps you can interact with is standard. Chest is standard. Information, papers, gates. Let's just see what are the scripts we added. Audio queue trigger. That's my own trigger. Let's where is this player? Go forward, thank you. It's the voiceover when I'm speaking. It's just a normal trigger when player enters. Cursor lock, unlock. I want to unlock and lock the screen when I want to. Dissolve is the script I've been using several times also in the previous asset to dissolve things using amazing assets or amazing shaders. Advanced dissolve, it's called, yeah. End of animation control, that's a trigger I use when I create custom animations. I have inside the animation a trigger that triggers a script. That's a good example, we can take a look. So this guy climbing up the wall, it's one of Ramster's animations, right? So I was trying to move it with animation, but there were some problems. So I ended up just moving it with the script. So it's moved to A to B over time. So it's just physically pulling this up through the ceiling. At the time I want to move it. The corner crawler itself. So if we find the animation, crawl up. Is this one? No, that's not one. Yeah. What about the library demon? It's crazy. It's crazy. Also crazy I have so many animations going on here. Oh, here we go. You can see there's an event here. End of wave function. Here again. Move corner crawler. Okay. So I actually only used it a few times. Nice. First run scene, that's the fun one we started with in the beginning. Examine trigger, that's the one where you get a quest update once you pick up something. Local explosion to move the coffins. By events is just a override to the electricity script for Horror FPS to trigger the lights when I feel like it. One-time trigger is a trigger that only triggers one time. Open URLs is for the buttons on the credits page in the front main menu screen where you can click to the Unity store. Random stuff is my ultimate script with everything. Trigger area with volume, audio. Type text with fade, that's the intro scene where you see the text is being typed out. Watch player hide. Oh yeah, that's these eye demons. I was actually thinking about removing them because I think They don't really fit in, but it's that. So you can see they have a lot of colliders as well. So once the player is touching one of these colliders, the eyes will follow the player. That's all they do. Why X-rotate? Why rotate? Just rotating of objects, like example these up here. So you can see it's rotating now. Oh, we're actually running the cutscene now. The camera itself is just a Cinemachine rail. That was not a problem. I had to figure out how to disable the... So you can see there's a camera track here. And now the player has control. Of course, we got all the development light on right now, right? So normally it'd be like this. So you go in here, you can see you get a quest. It's in here in the objectives. You hit the power, it says power off. Go down to the basement. Of course the game is muted right now. You hit this, an audio cue is playing. You can see on the left here it says audio cue. This one is a fake, it does nothing. And this is where you get the new quest. And if we pick it up again, you don't get it again because we have this only run once. Quest tells you to go to the ceiling, but now it's exploring time. We forgot to turn him off. So now he spawns again because we forgot to. Wave, bye bye. And the books and everything. Light switch is working, yes. Go to the ceiling. Doors are locked. You have to go around. It's a lot easier with the lights on, right? The radio works. You get a trigger update here. Yes, nice. Pick up this key. And now we got access to the basement. I should really reduce the stamina because I can run for a long time. Get a scare. Ooh, yes, really scary. And when we approach the door, whoops, this guy comes out. In here, I didn't show this in the demo. There's this eye following you around, and it despawns into nothing. Enjoy the exploration. Take the key. This is a unique key. And this key fits in here, so this guy goes up. You can unlock this. Custom animation again, so when you open... First time the lock opens, but that... Whoop. And then you end the game here. Super simple. It takes a long time, and what I really wanted to do was maybe add a more atmosphere, making it a bit more creepy. You could add more sounds, and then of course all the items you could add a interactable script. I'll just show you. So example, this water bottle. So I'm gonna take the water bottle, hit cut, go back to main. I'm just gonna paste it here. Then I'm gonna disable static. Oh, gonna make it interactable. Where is it? On the right layer, right? Gonna disable this collider. Yeah, just use oh, not a 2D box collider for now. There we go. Make sure the collider is not a trigger. It's not. Remove this. Then we're gonna add. Is it interactable item? I think it's like this. Yes, generic item. Only examine object. water bottle. Allow to rotate at some distance, yes. Face to camera, no. Okay. And let's move it down here so we don't have to run up there. Whoop. Okay, so now it's hanging there. Just gonna hit save, and we're gonna hit start scene, enable this one so we skip the cutscene. You can see there's a water bottle hanging here. Examine. Oh, and then you get the pop-up water bottle. It's really that simple. But it will take a lot of work, of course, to add all these things to the game. Because there's so many things to add. The ladder itself was really nice to have, just working out of the box. I just took the example. The example ladder, you can see there like a mesh behind. And placed it, and then I placed where the player gets off, back here. Super easy, really nice. I just had to adjust the collider and these positions. There are some various positions where you get on and off. Mesh render, so that's the original ladder. Just disable that, there we go. Synty ladder now. Same with the radio. The real radio is actually still here, so you can see the Synty radio is there, right? And when I click it, you can see there's a box inside. If we unfold, you can see, there we go. That's actually the original radio. So if we just scale that up and enable the mesh, you can see it's right there. I just unpacked it, moved the buttons around, so we have the buttons in a Synty scale size and the light up here. Super easy. And then of course dev lights. There we go. Get the atmosphere. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope it helps someone if they're trying to make a horror game or something like that in the future. Enjoy the demo. It's available on itch.io, and link is in the description. Link to the video is also in the description below. Hope you have a great day. Goodbye.